Why do you think this movie was forgotten? With all of the numbers we threw out, this being so successful on home video, where does it go in memory? Why does it slip off everyone's minds?
I think that, for me, I think that visuals will only take you so far. You know, I think that your movie can be very visually impressive, but if you haven't got other stuff to sink your teeth into with that movie, I mean, this is a movie that maybe lives on in GIFs and screenshots and Vimeo clips and every frame a painting shit and like film nerds kind of talk about it, or Tarsum heads talk about. But I think that even the people who were dazzled enough by it to buy 1 million copies of it when it first was released on home video, I think the fact that it's this relic of the 3D era and that a lot of the movie is extremely dark also works against it, especially since nobody's buying the 3D TVs. Like, that home video aspect of the 3D stuff never hit. I think that it's an interesting oddity from a point in time in the film industry that just kind of didn't carry on. And so I don't know. I think it's because it's mainly satisfying as a visual feast, and the visuals, to feast on them properly, you need a lot of hardware that isn't really being sold anymore.
Yeah. I think that's all true. And do I want to add anything to that? I mean, I don't know that this movie's memeable. I know I've talked about that a lot, especially in the second half of the season, that there's just nothing really iconic as visually great as it is. There's nothing memorable about the visuals. They're all just like dazzling when you're watching them, but like when I think back to it, there are like 5 very distinctive visuals from The Fall that I can point to. The cell with the horse being dissected, or the, golden gown that Vincent D'Onofrio wears. Like, there are things in those movies that are just like burned into my brain. Yeah. And there's not really anything from this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's all of that. I do think it's part of being wrapped up in that 3D culture that we talked about last week, but I have a new theory. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of building on something I said earlier this season, which is, I think, again, this is just a theory. I don't have the statistics to back it up, but there's no memory-inducing apparatus that exists anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, if we charted the ratio of films released to films remembered over time, that I'm willing to bet there's a precipitous drop-off around this period of time, maybe a little bit earlier. Because when you get away from that TBS, Sunday afternoon movie, you get to, AMC showing movies on Friday nights, or whatever it is that makes Shawshank Redemption the best movie of all time because everybody's seen it, because everybody has a TV with basic cable. That makes sense. But then that goes away, and now there's nothing to kind of canonize things. There's memory persists with repetition, and there's nothing to initiate repetition except intentionality. Ooh. And whoa, that doesn't exist anymore.
That's deep, and that's profound, because it's like, the only way you remember a thing is if you decide you want to remember it. You're not given, there's not an outside force that is putting a thing in front of you again and again and determining this is culture. Right. And ultimately, I think that because this movie I don't think is particularly fun to watch, it's not exactly a barrel of monkeys. Very few people choose to remember this. Very few people choose to revisit this. Even if you are in love with the visuals of this, you're more likely to watch The Cell or The Fall, other Tarsum projects that hit bigger.
As 3D TVs became obsolete, suddenly you don't have this movie to put on as an example of your home entertainment system anymore. Like, you're going to be choosing a different film. You're going to be choosing 1917 or whatever 4K thing to show off your new 4K TV. There's no longer any reason to reach for that Immortals DVD on your shelf.
On your 4K TV, Immortals, like, the very dark scenes where you can barely see anything are rendered so crisply. You can really see the darkness so clearly.
I like that about 4K. I'm not going to get into that.
Oh, I've talked to you before.
Subscribe to Movie Memory Machine for new forgotten movies every other Friday, available wherever you listen to podcasts.